Thank you. All right, for the first part of this, I'd like to open up the public hearing of the Warrenton Board of Aldermen meeting for November 21st, 2017. But before I do that, real quickly, Jack, I won't be too long. I'd like to thank the board and for the patience of the people for my my time away. So before I get started, if I forget about that, I want to say thank you, first of all, to Alderman Sharvey for stepping in and doing what he does, and the rest of the board for being supportive. So thank you.
I'm sure they're all glad you're back. Around.
Amen, brother.
Oh.
All right, Jack. Thank you.
You guys are cool.
Good evening, Mayor and Board.
Excuse me.
First item I have is a approval request for the revision of Section 405.250, off-street loading and parking, ADM-92. Motion for approval passed 8-0 with 2 absent at the November 2nd, 2017 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. I'd like to ask to make part of the public hearing record the municipal code by reference, the public hearing notice, and my planning and zoning report.
Duly noted. This portion, if there's anybody who'd like to come up and speak on that behalf, they can. It's a public hearing. We just ask that you keep your comments down to 5 minutes.
Briefly, Jack, what does that change in regard to the off-street loading and parking?
The main change is previously our code calculated parking requirements based on the net floor area of the buildings, and this is revising it to basing it on the gross floor area, which is more in line with the surrounding cities and makes it easier for someone to do their design when they do not know exactly what the tenant is going to be. So it makes it more difficult for the applicant to provide proposed net floor area when they're not sure who's going to be occupying their building. If we know the dimensions of the building they're building and we base it off of the overall size, then it helps them meet code and to rent the building out as they go.
No.
And also in the packet is 14 other cities. Started comparing how they do it, and basically we were about the only ones that based it on net floor area.
So to break that down a little further and help Jack out, this is Jack addressing an issue to try and be more friendly to businesses coming in town and dealing with them to show that we will work and listen to what people are complaining about and address the issues. So.
Great, thank you.
And realistically, once we had facts of what someone was wanting to do, once they was able to provide net floor area, we were basically right in the middle of the surrounding cities for parking requirements. We weren't out of line, but it was harder for some people to understand how to get that calculation.
And broke it down a little easier.
Good. Thank you.
No problem.
Not seeing anybody want to, or any comments on the ADM 92. Let me go ahead and move on to the next one.
Next item I have is Main Street Apartments Site Plan SP 117 approval request. On September 29th, 2017, a request was filed excuse me, for site plan approval to allow commercial business on the first floor and apartments on the second and third floors of an existing building located at 201 East Main Street. Property is Zone C2 General Commercial. Motion for approval passed 7-1 with 2 absent at the November 2nd, 2017 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting with no additional conditions. I'd like to ask to make part of the public hearing record the municipal code by reference, the public hearing notice, my planning and zoning report, and the Warrenton 2016 comprehensive plan. And the applicants are here if you have any specific questions for them.
Duly noted. Any questions or comments on that? Any hearing from the public on the SB 117? Move on to the next one.
Next item I have is the Main Street Apartments Conditional Use Permit, CUP-55 approval request. On September 29th, 2017, a request was filed for a conditional use permit approval to allow commercial business on the first floor and apartments on the second and third floors of an existing building located at 201 East Main Street. Property is zoned C2 General Commercial per Appendix A1, A4. A conditional use permit is required. This conditional use permit approval request has been submitted by the applicant along with site plan SP 117 approval request as required per section 405.340C8. Motion for approval passed 8-0 with 2 absent at the November 2nd, 2017 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting with a condition that no more than 6 apartment units are allowed. I'd like to ask to make part of the public hearing record the municipal code by reference, the public hearing notices, and my planning and zoning report.
I'll be duly noted.
And the multifamily is what triggers the conditional use permit.
Anybody from the public would like to come up and speak on conditional use permit 55? Not seeing anyone, that'll bring our public hearing section of the Warrenton Board of Aldermen meeting for November 21st, 2017 to a close, and we open the regular Board of Aldermen meeting November 21st, 2017 at this time, and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item will be the consent agenda items.
First item is the regular meeting minutes from November 7th, 2017, the executive session minutes from November 7th, 2017, and the approval to hire Jamie Schuster to start as a police officer at $17.23 an hour with the start date of December the 4th.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Shell Harvey. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey,
Yes.
Alderman Costello,
Yes.
Alderman Ock,
Yes.
Alderman Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Next item will be hearing from the public. We ask that if you have any comments to make, please come to the podium, state your name, and we'll give you 5 minutes to speak. Not seeing anyone, we'll move on. Next will be the Board of Aldermen comments.
I have a question for Brad. I might have talked to you about this or mentioned it to you several months ago. This winter, the cemetery has a number of stumps where we've cut down trees. Would there be any way we can squeeze in some time to get those ground down?
I don't know, we'll have to see, because most of our work's gonna be out at the new park.
Yeah.
We've got electric and a whole bunch of other stuff to do. We can see, probably a better time would be in springtime to do those.
Or maybe hire somebody to do it?
We'll have to see, because that wouldn't be in the budget, so, to do that, so.
Okay.
I'll get with Terry and see what
Appreciate it.
we can do.
Okay.
All right.
Any other comments?
Mayor, I'd just like to comment on, I noticed that under the Assistant Director of Operations, we had the topic of meeting with the downtown business owners. I presume that'll be an upcoming open session. I think that's very encouraging. I would ask that if it is not included, that we include the opportunity to discuss sidewalk enhancement in the downtown area at the same time as we do that.
I think that needs to be a part of the comprehensive revitalization of downtown.
If you wouldn't mind noting that, Brandy, please, so we can bring that up. Definitely noted.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Have nothing.
With that, we'll bring the Board of Aldermen comments to a close and open with the mayor's comments. I don't know if anybody's driven around town or not, but I can tell you I was quite shocked and have received numerous comments on how well the overpass is progressing. So if you haven't driven down that way, please take a trip. Because I have a tendency sometimes not to go west. And I drove down there after somebody made comment, and I'll tell you, impressive. Impressive how fast and how well they're coming along with that. So if you have the chance, go down there and see it. I think it's quite impressive.
I agree with the mayor. I have a grandson that's home for Thanksgiving, lives in Alabama during the school year, and I asked him if he had seen it. He had no reason to drive that direction either, and I drove him out there today, and it is really, really, as the mayor said, impressive. Looks like they're getting the off-ramp and the on-ramp lanes already poured. You can see the shape of the south leg of the overpass. Elevation work has just been incredible how quickly it's come along, and nothing better than good weather.
That's right.
We've really been blessed with
That's right.
good weather, but the project really is coming along.
It just, you know, what amazes me sometimes when we waited for a while, and a lot of people asked when we were going to start, and I've just been amazed how many people are excited and the excitement that's coming around with it. So a lot of good things happening, but that just, you know, when you can see it, it really ignites a new passion. So, yeah. All right. Next item will be hearing from Assistant Director of Operations, Brandy Walter.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. As Alderman Costello stated earlier, the Downtown Association was wanting to meet with you guys to go over downtown revitalization. So our suggestion is that we have it as a public meeting here at City Hall, whatever date is good for you guys. We were thinking more after the holidays are over with, maybe early January or something like that. And instead of just the WDA, getting all of the downtown businesses invited and have everybody have kind of an open forum of discussing the revitalization of downtown.
I think we need to also add the people who are investing in property, because not every business owner owns the property. So it really needs to include the property owners in addition, because that brings in the perspective of an investor.
Brandy, one of the things they had approached me about this, and one of the things I brought up was if they could possibly meet before they met with us and actually come up with some bullet points that they want to address, rather than just it, because I said it may just end up being, without that kind of format, it could just end up being a wide open thing, and I think there's specific things they want to concentrate on, so I recommended that they do that. So I'm hoping I wasn't speaking out of turn on that, but I thought that would be a better approach than just a real broad range of.
Do you have a feel, Brandy, for what kind of time they're requesting? An hour? Or?
I have not. I do not.
it'll probably be a little bit longer.
About it. And I would guess probably a couple hours.
Yeah,
So,
at least a couple.
Then the suggestion from that is that we would do it separate, not before a board meeting, have a special night just for that.
Yeah, I would
Maybe like
say
more like a
separate.
workshop than an actual.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I'm going to mention a name, and I'm going to, don't be telling her I said anything bad about her, Mr. Brent, Dr. Brent, but your wife, I appreciate the fact that she's really taken a big initiative on this, and I know she's been in contact with me. She's fun to work with. She really is, because she's got ideas. Yeah, I'm sure you do, Bill. But she's got great ideas, and she's passionate about it, and it's great to see that in our community. So just pass it along that I do appreciate that she's jumping in with both feet.
if we could get everybody to take care of their property as well as the Brents in the downtown district, probably wouldn't be having this discussion. They've made a great investment
They have.
in their downtown area.
They have, and
Appreciate it.
we appreciate it. And, you know, we have a new owner, and I believe he bought a couple buildings, and he repainted the front. I mean, he's got a lot of things going on that he isn't even, dare I say, in the wrong context. It's not city initiated. It's people wanting to see it. And I think that's a great thing, and we just need to keep fostering it and keep it going on. So, kudos to everybody on that.
So if you would like, we can get a couple dates together and send it out to all of you guys so you can bring them out of the date.
I guess with the holidays, kind of a bad time to look, but over the holidays, can we all please look and then email Brandy or Terry dates that you guys are available, and we'll try and collectively come up with one.
Just, well, we got the whole board here, you know, on non-Board of Aldermen meeting nights, is Tuesday a good night for everyone?
Yeah.
Tuesdays are better?
So,
I know we tried Thursdays before, and it's hit or miss
Yeah.
on Thursdays.
Tuesdays, I think, work pretty well.
Tuesday work. At least most of us at my age, I mean, we're trying to remember on a specific Tuesday whether we got a meeting that night. At least it's on the brain.
Oh, man, you just go areas where you can't touch. So we're looking to do Tuesdays and sometime right after.
Right after the holidays.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Chief of Police Larry Ellett.
Evening, Board. The only item I have for you this time is the monthly report.
I spoke to the chief before the meeting. I was looking over his report, and I was stunned at the number of calls, the number of things that the police department is called to respond to in 1 month. 2,592 for a community our size. I think that was stunning to me, at least.
We'll say, I admire every one of our officers that are on the police force, but I will say Detective Unger is really, we haven't been able to fill that second detective spot, and he's really put away some cases.
I wish I had 10 more ahead.
I'd agree with you. And I know sometimes we don't get to recognize some, but I just wanted to kind of point that out, that he's been a one-man show down there. And I know he's gotten help from other people, but he's really put forth the best foot and not complained. And that's great.
I'll pass that on to him.
Thank you. Any other questions about the monthly report? All right.
Chief, I know, I believe we gave some direction at either the last meeting or the meeting before on the motorized vehicles. I understood it, you're working on that, on recommendations.
We have, let me say that's complete, a draft that's complete.
We did some final touches for an edit to have it presented to you guys, I believe next
I just want to
meeting.
make sure you guys are working on it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We've been directed from Terry on vacation to work on it, so.
It's always great when you get contact and somebody's on vacation. Anything else? All right, thank you. Next, we'll hear from zoning officer and building commissioner, Jack Hanna.
First item is the monthly building code enforcement report. It's pretty typical. Trash and vehicle violations is the main two violations that we wrote up.
Jack, what's the status of the burnout home over on, behind the school?
410 Roy,
Yeah.
he has submitted his plans. There was comments and the revised plans were submitted back to GBA this week. So hopefully he'll get started on that
Sure is
in
moving
the real
slow.
immediate future.
As long as we've been after him, it sure is. Because I'm still getting complaints over there from the, I don't know how we can speed it up, but
So has the burnout portion been removed?
Yes, that's been out of it for quite some time. He was waiting on his architect to get plans for the new construction completed and
Are
submitted.
they planning on using the existing foundation jack? Or?
Yes, sir. And part of the existing structure. They've submitted a report from a structural engineer stating what part of the structure they can reuse and what part of it needs to go.
In the future, would it help if we were able to work with an ordinance to maybe expedite that a little faster if we had, unfortunately, if we had any events of a burnt or a residential structure fire leaving a house like that?
We have existing code.
But I mean,
And
to enhance it.
we recently had the house burn at 33 Oakwood, and we're working with them, and we've already heard back from their insurance company in that as far as putting money in escrow. Made contact with the owners and the insurance company to make sure we never go through a situation like this
And
again.
I know that's a split. Sometimes the insurance company can really bog down the process. I've understood that from talking to different people. But, you know, just as a side note, if there's anything we can look at for enhancing and helping, please let us know.
Okay.
We can have a workshop on it and try and work something. Right.
Next item I have is the approval request for the revision of section 405.250, off-street loading and parking, ADM 92.
Yeah, I have some questions on that, Jack. When we were in the P&Z meeting and they were talking about building requirements on the next item that's going to come up, there was some discussion about off-street parking for commercial and off-street parking for apartments on Main Street. And it seemed to me that the ordinance requiring off-street parking on Main Street is kind of inappropriate, as there is no parking, you know, for some of those buildings. So if somebody put a use in, let's say in the middle of one of the blocks that required a conditional use permit, how do we require those buildings to have off-street parking that the owner has? So I asked Terry to contact Chris and see if that was something we needed to address, because it seems like it was an issue that came up on this property that we're going to talk about later on, and it seemed like to me the issue just was blown by. And so I don't know if I missed that part of the meeting and didn't understand it, but why do we have a requirement downtown for an owner to have off-street parking if you look at how the businesses are laid out building to building?
It is addressed in this proposed revision under number M, modification to the downtown commercial historic area, where it talks about the total amount of parking and loading space required for a given lot or parcel may be reduced by site plan review.
Well, that was
City staff did meet with Mr. Graville and discuss what you were talking about. We did try to address it, sir.
But that's not really, I mean, this was, you're not modifying M. I'm looking at M, it's all you did was add loading space to M, if I'm looking at the right place.
You are, Chris, you want to?
Yeah, what I understood the issue to be was eliminating the loading space requirement in the site plan process for downtown commercial historic district. And I would guess by the shaking of your head that I didn't understand it.
Well, the issue to me was, this came up on this property, so if the P&Z or Jack looked at the number of parking spots required for the apartments, and then added the number of parking spots required for commercial, that was in excess of what was there. And it brought up the question is, if we got public parking downtown, why do we have in the code that somebody has to have private parking for their commercial? That was the question I raised to Terry that I thought she got to you.
She did get that to me. If you recall back, there was the pool hall that had this exact same issue. This was a couple of years ago. My age is showing, but came in and said, well, you required to have these amount of parking spaces. So we created this downtown commercial historic area that we always had the idea that this will be a place we can go and modify and change some of the requirements because of the uniqueness of downtown. So what we did with that particular situation was to put, remember this is part of the site plan process, the total amount of parking and loading spaces required for a given lot or parcel may be reduced by site plan review, with the idea being like, for example, the apartments, that they can look at it and say, we've got public parking, the city maintains it, these are the parking spaces that were on there. One of the things we talked about with staff with regards to not wanting to, we added loading spaces requirements shall not be required in the historic district because it really doesn't make sense. But one of the reasons we didn't modify that section and how I think this has worked well is the fact that the idea being like the building across the street, what if somebody tears something down? Yes, there's public parking, but they also can have a private parking lot as well. So like, for example, and I don't know what happened when the apartments came in, how much debate there was over the spacing or whatnot, but we kind of left it open-ended with the idea that each project would be unique and looked at it as each project, so that if you said the commercial requires this amount of parking, the residential requires this amount of parking, they're looking at that, because every single downtown building is some of them have no ability to have parking, some of them have some ability to have parking and they're behind the building, and so really to keep it as a very flexible mechanism to review the parking. And I think that's worked pretty well for the parking requirements, but I don't know that I wasn't at the P&Z meeting to understand.
I think it was really confusing because no one stated that you could waive the square footage requirements on the commercial. I think they came in with 12 handwritten lots or 10, I can't remember. And so the reason it got reduced is if you take 2 parking places per apartment, you needed 12. Well, if the lot behind there had 12, okay, it was enough. If it had 10, it wasn't enough, so they reduced it to 6. But they never talked about commercial after that. It was kind of like they blew the whole issue of commercial off. No one sat there and said, you know, we have the ability under this code to modify it to 20%. They said that, but there's nothing under the code says you can arbitrarily waive off commercial as part of the project in your parking requirement. And that's what I was trying to bring up, is it seemed like to me they had tried to address the issue, but they kind of forgot that there's a commercial piece to this too, and that never really came up in conversation.
The commercial site has all of Main Street to use.
Well,
Just because you own the building doesn't mean the slot in front of you is specifically
Oh,
for
I
your
understand
business.
that, but when they were, when I think the conversation came up was when you calculate the parking, you calculate the square footage for the commercial lot and you calculate the apartments, so it's 2 calculations. That's what was discussed, but when they finally made a decision, they just kind of ignored that whole conversation about commercial. And I think you're right, that's why I suggested we take the commercial side off, because there's public parking downtown. But that's why I thought there was going to be, I asked if there could be an ordinance change to that effect.
And that may have been my misunderstanding of it, because my understanding was the loading space requirement was really the focus of it. But I will say this, Alderman Ock, I think with the meeting you guys have coming up, and, you know, I don't know that there's really been a consistent pattern of development downtown. This is the second request in the last 3 years, maybe, that has a mixed use of an apartment and commercial. So now that we kind of have an idea of that going in there, I think we can make that modification fairly simply and say that public parking is dedicated for commercial space. They're not required to have parking spaces, and really have it for the residential aspect of it with the reduction. And I think that makes a lot of sense, and we can modify it. Because I think we're going to be revisiting this, because this is really where what we always anticipated as being the section that relieves maybe some of the stringent requirements for new construction and whatnot.
And I think to follow up on that, I've owned several buildings in downtown district. Each one is unique. One has 3 parking places. The other has 5. Yet you look at the Schoengert building that's owned by Mike Wright, there's no additional parking and no way to get it because it's built property line to property line. So I'd only just say that I think this is one of those issues that's real important that we take a look at some public parking, because I think that is one of the ways that can be resolved, and that might have to walk a little further, but there is a place to park. And I think the Fall Festival is a one-day event, but in that area also, the more parking we had, I think the better off we'd be. So maybe this was stated by someone else, the opportunity as we meet with this downtown group to really analyze this and see what the needs are because no matter how much parking they want to provide, these folks or anyone else, if the space isn't available, it's not available. And yet you don't want to make that property even less attractive by not having the ability.
Well, and that was my point, is if you require somebody to have, to get a conditional use and have so many parking spots that they personally own, that's not conducive to downtown. And so it makes no sense, and I think the ordinance should be a lot clearer about that, because I suspect the one no vote was a no vote based on the number of parking spaces. Because the conversation started out, well, you gotta calculate the apartments, you gotta calculate the commercial square footage, and that's probably what precipitated the no vote, because there's not enough space to do that. And there shouldn't be, there shouldn't have to be.
And I think many of us believe that the success of revitalizing the downtown district is going to be a mix of commercial and habitational in the second and in Dr. Brent's building, the third story. So, I think we need to solve that.
Alderman Ock, if I could just ask a quick question. Looking at M, it looks like the last sentence is really, I think, and I guess that's my question. Do you, like, the last sentence is a little bit confusing because it has that 20% requirement, because up above you said it says the total amount of parking and loading space required for a given lot or a parcel may be reduced by site plan review.
Right.
Do we really even need to say mixed use and just leave it up to site plan review?
Well, I think the issue was the 20%.
Right.
If they would have came back, I think if the ordinance would have said it may be reduced by the P and Z board, then they wouldn't have to make a calculation of square footage of the apartments, the square footage of the commercial. They could say this is a reasonable response to what they're asking for, and they could approve it based on that. But they tried to make the calculation, which I think is what led to the 6 apartments versus the 8.
Well, so my question then is, if this ordinance is approved tonight and someone made a motion to amend it to remove that last sentence on M, then it is just going to be the total amount of parking and loadings required for a given lot or parcel may be reduced at site plan review. So I think we could, with no calculations whatsoever, so I think we can implement that tonight, and then I think go back with some of that guidance about the mixed use to really, I think, make it a little bit more accessible, but I think we can eliminate that 20% tonight if the ordinance is considered by eliminating that last sentence.
Well, my specific question to Terry was, since we're changing the ordinance anyway, can we make a change like that without having that change to go back to P and Z, or can we simply, when we're amending it, make that change? That was the other question.
Yeah, and you guys can amend it tonight, you can remove that section. The public hearing notice was for that full section. So if you want to make amendment to the ordinance to eliminate that last sentence, that would eliminate the 20% requirement, and then just the general power delegated to planning commission to reduce the total parking and loading space would be parcel by parcel.
I think that would accomplish your goal. I think that'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, does anyone on the board have an objection to it, or see a problem with doing that?
I think it makes sense, it leaves us a little more flexible.
Then we're not stuck in that strict rule. X means you gotta have this.
Yeah, right.
And like you said, some buildings, the whole lot might be building.
So you got that clear?
Clear as mud.
You're going to make the motion, you understand?
No, I understand. Do you understand the second? No.
I will, sure. You get
As long as Melody understands, right? Ratchet it out.
I'll just point to the lawyer and say whatever he says.
So we'll just eliminate the last sentence of subsection M completely.
Yeah, just a motion to amend introduce the ordinance, and then a motion to amend it with that.
What's that? Yeah, we'll do that with the bill.
That'll be later.
On the next,
Yeah, we get down to the bill after we pass the bill, and I'll make a motion to strike that from the bill, or to change the bill.
I have a question for the folks when we get to
When
it.
we get to it.
Okay?
Oh, Lord, here it goes. All right. Jack, before this comes in another question, let's move on to the next one.
All right. Next item I have is the Main Street Apartments Site Plan, SP 117 approval request. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, please come forward, yes. Come to the podium, just state who you are.
Lori Miller.
Steve Miller.
You know they're gonna say something.
I was gonna say, I like that band, but I don't say.
It's coming, I know it is, so you might as well just take it beforehand. Go ahead, folks.
We're just here if you have any questions.
Exactly.
For the site.
I heard a question.
I figured there was a bunch of questions coming, so.
First of all, the idea of what you're doing, I think it's great for downtown. I think if it works out, that's good. My question simply is, have you visited the second and third floor of the building?
Yes.
And with the roof being peeled off a few months ago, is there a problem with water damage, mold, that sort of thing?
I didn't see any mold. There's a brand new roof on it now, as you probably all know. There's a few windows that have been broken that I'm thinking once I get in the wall, I might find something behind the plaster we can't see now. But
A lot of water poured in there when that happened, I'm sure.
I did notice some flooring damage on the first floor, but I believe it was just the hardwood floor buckling from humidity. Nothing as far as the main substrate of the building that I've seen so far without, we don't own it yet. We have a closing date of next week,
Okay.
depending how tonight goes.
Have you been in contact with the fire department, with any regulations that they might have for a third floor apartment?
I have not been in contact with the fire department. I kind of planned on worst case scenario with what they're going to want as far as the fire safety, but I have not been in touch with
Direct
them.
contact with them, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I had raised the question too with Gary, because we run into a couple problems on commercial projects lately where the fire department comes in after there's been approval and we've done stuff, and they come in and say, well, in this structure you need a sprinkler system. Well, the city didn't have that necessarily as a requirement, but when the fire department came in, they required things to be done, and so the city took the heat on it, but it really, so I would suggest before you sign that you go, and maybe Jack can help you through the process, go have the fire inspector chief walk through the building and see if he throws any curveballs to you, because I don't think we want to get in that situation where we're doing that. That's been on 2 of the last commercial projects where it's changed slightly, so a word of warning.
Thank you.
Now, the other thing I want to bring up is in light of our discussion tonight about changing the ordinance, the condition, I'll save that for later, that's under the conditional use side. Jumping ahead of myself.
Steve, do you also, you do flooring? Correct. Yeah, I think you did some hardwood floors, don't you?
I think so.
Yeah.
Years ago.
That was a nice job.
Thank you.
Any questions as far as the site plan goes?
So what is on the back lot, did you have 12 parking spots or 10?
10.
10, okay.
10 oversized parking spots.
And room for a dumpster back
Right.
there too.
Right, I remember that.
Any other question?
Thank you for your interest.
Say, if you guys just want to stay up there, we'll move on to the conditional use permit. You get to see if you want to, but.
Next item is the Main Street Apartments Conditional Use Permit, CUP 55 approval request.
So here's my question. So the reason it was reduced from 8 apartments to 6 was because of parking. But if we're going to go ahead and be more arbitrary about the parking, should we still keep that condition on it? That's, I mean, because the logic was, well, you want 12 spots sitting there that are next to the apartment, so the property owner, when they bring their groceries home, won't have to walk 2 blocks away to go up in the apartment. But if we're not requiring that restriction, is it problematic for them to have 6 apartments under the old theory requiring 12 spaces when they got 10, because 2 people could park in the street? Is that I'm just throwing it out, I mean, as a thought, because the restriction was put on based on not being as flexible downtown as I think we're kind of trying to go.
Well, you know, I think many of us were aware of the apartments that were in the Brewski's building, both in the lower level and in the back. And I know that those tenants parked on Main Street.
Right.
You know, after hours, Main Street's pretty wide open for parking.
Well, and because my thought on this, if this is an enterprise trying to make money, as some are, if you have 6 apartments versus 8, it probably will reduce your revenue stream. So if we don't require it, when we change the ordinance, then why should we require it as a conditional use?
I think you have the right to give
Follow
that
me?
recommendation or not, correct, Chris? And
The
they originally asked
The
for
lawyer raises
Hey,
his finger.
Yeah, no,
You
for the
do,
first
the
time.
only thing I would caution against is, it's public parking, and I do have a concern, what I would recommend for consideration for discussion is, if you are going to say you can have 8 apartments, I would recommend that the tenants not park on Main Street, at least during business hours for the Main Street parking, because I do think for trying to develop retail, this is your opportunity to really control the public spaces that, I will tell you this, in my time with the city of Warrenton, there are business owners that when their spaces, when downtown was, flourishing, business owners became very upset when people were regularly parking in spaces in front of their business because that was their only parking space. And so I just think looking prospectively as we try to revitalize downtown, to restrict any tenant, if you allow 8, that's fine. They can figure out the spaces and deal with it, but if, to restrict them from the public parking, I think is something, when you look at downtown as a whole, is important to do, because it was an issue at one point in time when there were restaurants and businesses down there. And we would deal with these disputes over this person, I mean, if there was one car that kept parking in a space because they lived somewhere up the street, and we got calls almost daily from the business owner saying, this is the only space in front of my building, and he's parking over there, and he works over there, and he lives there. So I think keeping it for non-tenants of downtowns is, I think, a good idea, but that's just something for you to discuss based on the history of downtown.
And I don't know how we'd enforce it, to be honest with you. I mean, if you park a car or go into the apartment, I don't think it's the police department's job to figure out if that's the car of somebody in an apartment. Or
Well, I will
the car
say
of somebody
this.
shopping.
The other business owners will figure it out.
Well, I'm
At
sure they
least
will.
That's what happened last time.
I'm sure they will, but we've also gotten away from the chalking of the tires,
I
which
remember
was really taxing on our police department for a minimal amount.
The other issue, quite honestly, will be how you lay the building out and where the access is. Human nature, they're gonna park on the side street and come in the back way if there's a back entrance.
There is.
So that, a lot of that can be facilitated by how the layout of the building is and how you intend for the tenants to access. Most tenants are not gonna wanna come in the front door if you have businesses in the lower level. They're gonna want access from the back. So I think I'd like to see parking be a problem. That's a good problem to have. It's a great problem. We had a lot more fun when we had parking problems than we did with the downtown.
I wouldn't call it fun.
We're sitting there bouncing things back and forth. What are your feelings on it?
We pulled out the number of 8 just because I feel there's probably square footage for them. We have not had architect or anybody get up there, no drawings at this point until we own the building. We might get in there and realize that, it's gonna cost a lot more to put 8 in because of all the mechanicals and where they're gonna run. We might walk away, if you offer us 8, we might walk away and do 6 or 7 just from logistics.
Yes.
The point is we're unclear until we can actually get in there, and so we just threw out 6 to 8, try to put ourselves in the right.
And trust me, I appreciate your honesty on it.
Okay.
So,
Just try to put ourselves in the
nobody's
right.
trying to bash you on it, I just really wanted to get your
Well, I
opinion.
wonder if we need to, I'm backpedaling a little bit, leave it as it is, and then as they get into the project, they can come and we can revisit the issue.
Okay.
Without, will we have to go through a public hearing and all that, or we could just do this pretty simply? If we wanted to revisit that issue.
I think so.
To amend the conditional use, we would probably have to go through a public hearing unless someone adds a condition to say they can bring plans for 2 additional apartments directly back to the, you could add a condition that basically says if they intend to build more than the 6 apartments, they can bring that request directly back to the Board of
For
Aldermen.
conditional use?
Yeah, and the conditional use.
Why couldn't we just add the verbiage of up to 8 apartments for doing
You
away with
could
that
do
last
that.
one?
You could do
And
that.
that just, that leaves the option open to them and what they designed for, but we are allowing up to 8, and they
Sure.
could do 7, 6, 5, 2 if they wanted to.
Or you could make them come back, or you could delegate it to staff to say they can approve 2 additional apartments.
I'm just kind of curious what the other board thinks about that whole argument that Chris said about, having not enough parking for the apartments on the street, so they're parking in front of businesses. Do you see that as problematic, or, is Chris's point good, or do you see that as an issue? I think what Greg said was, in these apartments, you're gonna be parking on the side street anyway, so it's not an issue. So,
They're in a park where
the entrance.
it's closest to them to get to where they want to go, because
Yeah.
as you mentioned, somebody mentioned, they're gonna be carrying groceries or whatever else they wanna. I lived in an upstairs apartment in one of the buildings I had, and I parked as close as I could.
Well, and not only that, but I think some
Access.
people want their privacy. They don't want people
Yeah.
knowing their businesses when they're in there or not. But I understand where Chris is coming from. We've had that dealings before, years ago.
That's just the historical, when we had a lot more, buildings and restaurants downtown. It was a battle dealing with the people that complaining about where, they're living there and they keep parking in my space, and they started putting chairs out there and cones, and that was just based on history. But like the signs, history has not always played out to be true, Alderman Ock.
Yeah, well, I was also thinking if I was gonna rent an apartment for you guys, I'd want assigned parking. So if you had 2 apartments that you said, well, you don't have a place to park, so you can park in the street, it probably wouldn't be as worth as much from the standpoint of a renter, so.
I just think we need, again, get back to the common sense part of it, and not trying to, we try to dictate, parking. In this instance, we did it at the Mama Bear's things, and yet you go by some of the houses. Gary, a good example is the rental house just a street over from you. 6 cars there's 3 in the park, 3 in the driveway, 1 on the street, 1 in the front yard, 2 in the street, 1 in front. The other day I went through there, they were parking on both sides of the street. I could barely get my Suburban through there, and we do nothing about that, So I think it's just a thing, we gotta use common sense on this thing, and I think, this is a perfect example of what, like what Greg's talking about, parking on the side of the street, and if you don't have assigned parking, maybe it doesn't, the value added to the apartment is important.
So is that an up to 8 remark?
It's
Well, he just puts right in there.
Yeah, I think, because I know it becomes I know they're gonna put a big investment in this, and so, I want them to be successful.
Me too.
So,
And you're always gonna go back to Jack, who has to approve the plans, and if the mechanics don't work, he's not gonna be able to approve it, so, that's.
and I think they're good, they sound like good common sense people too, so they're not gonna overextend themselves on.
Jack, I'm going to ask you real quick.
He's modifying one and you're modifying the other.
The up to 8 apartments, would that be easy for you to deal with as well? If we modified that on this conditional use permit tonight?
That wouldn't bother me at all.
It's not going to cause any problems or hassles for you, though.
Once they get real dimensions, there's minimum
Correct.
square footage for apartments that they,
I'm just
Have to
making sure that
multiply
it's not going to
times 8.
cause any headaches or more entailed for you. Then I think we're good with it. Any other questions or comments? Painless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Jack, anything else?
That's it, sir.
With a smile. Next, we'll hear from Maintenance and Grounds Director Brad Boozy-Cruz.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. Have the October maintenance report. Still mowing quite a bit. Doing some maintenance on some mowers and some other stuff. That's about what we have going on right now.
Is it my imagination or the leaves extremely slow coming off the trees?
Very, very slow. The rain Saturday helped them. Wayne had it pristine, and within one day, he's back to grinding again. So he's working on that. So we'll have that done. We did Dyer Park today. Blew a lot of those. Got the tennis courts and everything cleared, and then got them blew out of the playgrounds and all the heavy spots, and then Larry was mowing those, getting
I
those.
just noticed it's showing at house. It seemed like the.
Yeah, they just that Saturday, that rain and that wind really, and that little cold snap kind of helped get them off. They've been kind of hanging on.
I think it kind of depends on where you're at. The one in my backyard, I had a change in a week, and then within 2 days, I think they were all on the ground. So my kids didn't like it. I didn't like it.
Keep them.
A couple of other things we're doing. We're doing the brush clearing out at the new pool complex. So we've got a little bit more to do on it. We'll have that. We're taking Brandy out there tomorrow to see about the what else we're going to do about the Frisbee golf course and how we're going to proceed with that as far as getting everything cut. I think we got the machine rented for another week, so we're going to try to get as much done as we can. We got the pond dam fixed out there where they had cut it. I guess the previous owners had cut it, tried to drain it or whatever they were going to do. We took 14 loads of dirt. We got it filled back in, got it all put back, got the dam sloped and everything. I think it's going to be good. We got some work to do on it, getting the trees and stuff off of it. But for right now, we just wanted to make sure we got the dam fixed in the back of the dam fixed. We've got the lake at, might have noticed over at Spectre Lake, we had a muskrat problem there. It had caved in last Friday. We got it fixed. That took, I think, 4 loads of dirt, or 4 dump truck loads of dirt to get that put back together. Working on getting the trapper over there to get the beaver and the muskrats. We've got a little problem with them. But other than that, that's where we've been just kind of working there.
Can I bring up the Frisbee golf course? I had talked earlier about with several people in the community who are really into this. Mike Coons, I don't know if you know Mike, he's really into this, and he approached me Sunday at church about what's going on. And one of the concerns I have, and I think he kind of had, is we're going to go ahead and do a lot of stuff toward that. And these guys said, we do this and we know what you need to do to kind of shape and design this, and they're willing to go out with you and look at what you're doing and talk about how they see something makes sense, because I know on initial drawings that had the Frisbee golf course intertwined with the walking trails and all that, and that's not typically how those things are set up. And he talked about, in Wentzville, they don't cut down a lot of the underbrush because that's part of what they do. So I would think if you could get together with a couple of these guys before you do a lot and just kind of walk around with them, and so they could give you some ideas, because they were pointing out things that, for example, the Wentzville did that didn't work, but Wentzville just went ahead and did it. So, I mean, to me, it's a great place for community input. It's a great place for that type of thing. And I would encourage that. I've brought this up before to Terry, that I thought that was important. We get community involvement on that, so there's some ownership. So I don't know if you need to contact Terry, but I think it would be really beneficial if you could walk it with a Mike Coons, or who, I don't know who else plays. He knows 3 or 4 guys locally who actually have these these Frisbee golf courses in their backyard. They went out and invested the money, so they were really into it. I think it would be
I
beneficial.
think Brandy already has the national whatever association's gonna be out to walk through it with us.
Well, I'd like to see some community involvement. I mean, you know, personally.
I've spoken with Terry on that as well, and she's all for that. She'd like to see us submit some names and make contact and have their input as well.
Yeah, I think because what I was telling Brandy, the ones that I've been on, unless we get a D8 cat out there and start really mowing down some trees, we're not gonna have it out there on the walking trail.
Well, I mean, you know,
It's too tight, and it needs to be more out at the complex or somewhere where it's bigger, a lot more area, and
Right.
a lot more to go.
And I mean, to me, and you talk to these guys, you know, typically in golf, if I'm striking here at golf club, and the guy sitting is where the tee box is, they want a big tree in the middle of it, because they want a challenge of throwing around the tree. So having it tight sometimes is beneficial, having it as open is beneficial. So I just,
Right.
you know, would like to see
Yeah,
some more community involvement.
That's why I wanted to get them involved with it too, because
Yeah.
we need some direction, because this is all new to us too, so.
Yeah, and one thing they also talked about is when you set a place where the bucket's gonna be, or whatever they call it, in Wentzville, that they created like 3 different places, so those buckets could be moved around within a certain area.
To change
To change it,
change
you
the
know.
course,
And if
sure.
you don't do that initially, sometimes you put that bucket in there and you get ready to move it out, and the thing's stuck.
Right.
So that's something else that came up in the discussion also, so.
So, Brandy, if we can get some names and some communication with you, or have them contact you by next week?
Yes,
Would
that
it be all
would
right?
be perfect. And I actually have a
Okay.
few names already of people that's come up here and talked to me and they want to be involved in it.
Great.
So I would like to have all those people have their input.
So write Mike Coon's name down.
Okay, and we have just for the,
Have them contact her.
I can have him call you? You
that
want
would
to
be
do that?
great.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do that.
And just so you know, we have decided now we're going to separate that because several people have told us that you can't have the walking trails within the golf area.
Right.
So we are going
Yeah,
to
I was just
separate
saying.
that now. So the walking trails will not be within the golf.
My understanding is if we do that, we may have some ambulance calls for unconscious people.
Yeah. There's a possibility.
Well, and Terry was, I think, concerned about having the course next to the lake where people could throw the, so in Cameron, where I usually do this, it goes around the park, so it goes next to the pool, so me and my great talent threw the Frisbee in the middle of the swimming pool in the middle of winter, and I couldn't get in and get it. And that was like a $25 investment. So I'm trying to climb over this fence as an old man to get my Frisbee out, and I was afraid the police would stop me.
I lose a lot of golf balls in the lakes out of these
Well, there you
courses, so
go.
you know,
Yeah,
that's
but you're
part
not
of the-
paying
that's
26.
part of the hazard, man.
You're not paying $26 for one Frisbee.
Any other questions or comments? Brad, anything else?
That's all I have.
Appreciate it. Next, we'll hear from Public Works Director Guy Jeevers.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. First time I had my monthly report. One of the items that we did was remove the trees on Main Street and fill in with concrete. Some sidewalk on Steinhagen. We completed the water and stormwater for tribute to veterans. That's completed. We had a 4-inch water main repair on Hawthorne Drive. Had 4 sewer calls for the month, 2 were private and 2 were on the city mains. If you have any questions? Next item I have is a proposal from Cochran Engineering for stormwater on Roosevelt, for stormwater improvements for the amount of $31,767. The budget amount for this project is $198,400, and the engineering was included in that budget.
Could you talk to me a little bit about time frame on this? Because these people have been waiting for 20 years for this project, and it would be kind of nice at some point in time if we could go to the neighbors and just say, this is what we're going to be doing, so over the next 4 or 5 months, this is what you're going to be seeing. I think it would go a long way to keep them informed, because they are going to have their lives disrupted, because a lot of them are parking in the ditch, and, you know, and you can barely get through that street. So I think they'll love it, but if we could give them a time frame, I think that'll get them excited about the project.
So after, if you approve it and we sign it, I'll send it to Cochran Engineering tomorrow. There'll be 30 days for survey, 45 days for plan and design, 21 days for advertisement, and then we'll pick a contractor out, and then it'll go to the board and approve it. So we're looking sometime in mid-March where contractor would start.
And with the what are you thinking about the contract's completion date?
I have,
You don't know if this is a 6-month project,
no,
3-month project at this point?
I'm afraid to say that because it might turn out to be a hickory lick.
I don't think we're gonna spend $1 million.
But I wouldn't
You never know.
expect 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
I mean, because it's pretty straightforward, and we are having a design to keep in mind for sidewalk. So when we come back through, if we go to put sidewalk in, that's going to be a street overhaul, because we'll have to have vertical curve. But we are designing it to accept the sidewalks too, so we're going to keep that
So
in mind.
theoretically, mid-June, beginning of July.
Yeah.
would be the end of the project.
So, well, but it'll occur within this cycle this year, hopefully.
So look mid-March,
Okay.
depending on how things, if everything's still booming, how many people bid on it.
Any other questions, comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Cochran Engineering proposal on Roosevelt Avenue, stormwater improvements from Wabash to Flora Avenue in the amount of $31,767.
So moved.
Who wants to be first? Alderman Deloy. Are you located down here?
I did.
Okay. Motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Costello. Roll call vote.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
I'll get that out tomorrow.
I'm sorry?
I'll get that out tomorrow.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Guy?
That'd be it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
We are at the bills to ordinance of the agenda, so we'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 71-17.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Shell Harvey, seconded by Alderman Schultz.
An ordinance, a zoning ordinance as authorized under section 405.390 of the municipal code of the city of Lawrence, Missouri, approving a site plan for Main Street Apartments located at 201 East Main Street.
Entertain a motion for the second reading passage of bill number 71-17.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Costello, seconded by Alderman Miller.
A zoning ordinance is authorized under section 405.390 of the municipal code of the city of Lawrence, Missouri, approving a site plan for Main Street Apartments located at 201 East Main Street.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. Entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 72-17. Is this, Chris, before we proceed with this, is this where we add the verbiage?
At the, yeah.
The amended verbiage?
Yeah, so what I would recommend is you introduce it, second it, and then you could read it once, or you can do it before the reading, where you'll make a motion to amend it to remove the M, to revise M. So you can actually.
Chris, this one is.
Well, this is
the
the
up to eight
one.
departments.
Oh, I'm
This is the
sorry.
update.
Up to 8 departments. I mean,
But
do you-
procedurally, you can do that. You can do that after the first reading or after the second reading. The bill doesn't. You don't want to pass the bill before you do the amendment.
So we can do it before the roll call vote.
Yeah. And then you'll vote on the amendment. Then you'll vote on the underlying bill.
Okay, so we'll do the first and second reading, then we'll do the amendment, then we'll do the roll call. Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 72-17.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Schultz, seconded by Alderman Deloy.
An ordinance approving the conditional use to allow Main Street Apartments located at 201 East Main Street.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading of bill number 72-17.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Costello, seconded by Alderman Shell Harvey.
An ordinance approving the conditional use to allow Main Street Apartments located at 201 East Main Street.
I'd like to make an amendment to the bill number 7217 that would allow up to 8 apartments to be built there, with the review to be done by the city council if necessary, if necessary.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Ock, seconded by Alderman Costello. Roll call vote on the amendment.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
6-0 on the amendment. Now, can we do a roll call vote on bill number 72-17 as well as with the amendment included?
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. All right, I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 73-17.
So moved.
That's not fair, guys. Who said first? We'll go with,
Right, left.
you were second?
Yeah.
Okay, motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Costello.
An ordinance amending and readopting section 405.250 off-street loading and parking of the municipal code of the city of Warrenton, Missouri.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading of bill number 73-17.
I'll make a motion to read that with the amendment of removing the last sentence of M.
We need to wait and do
Well, you can do it either way,
the
right?
second reading and then do the amendment.
You can do it either way, you can do
Okay.
it first or second.
Keep going, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Removing the last sentence of section M
M.
of, one M, right?
Yes.
Yeah, M's right.
The entire last sentence removed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Alderman Schultz, seconded by Alderman Costello with the amendment of the elimination of the last sentence in subsection M.
An ordinance amending and readopting section 405.250 off-street loading and parking of the municipal code of the city of Warrenton, Missouri.
Roll call vote for passage.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Passage of bill number 73-17 with the amendment passes 6-0.
Before we go to executive session, may I add something? We have an article laid out on the table here, Lincoln County Journal, talking about redesign work on 47. And as we all know, sitting here, all of us have been approached and talked to about people who live north of town who are concerned that there's no sidewalk along Highway 47. The note here from Terry says maybe we need to schedule a meeting with MoDOT to discuss North Highway 47. I think we need to take advantage of her suggestion and ask that she would call a meeting with MoDOT so we can talk about the concerns that we have with the safety along there.
Let me say I encourage that, but I'm going to encourage that to be a workshop meeting, and all of us that have received those complaints need to dig back through and call those people and have them present for that meeting.
Well,
We need
yeah.
a good showing.
Yeah.
To show MoDOT that it's not just a board, or mayor, or whoever that is concerned. It's the general public.
We can pack it out.
We need to.
Well, this is in reference to the 4761 interchange.
Right, but her note here says maybe we need to schedule a meeting with MoDOT to discuss North Highway 47 sidewalk since they have money.
So, Adam, I would never
So if the state
dictate
has money-
what goes in the paper, but I will say, we'll work heavily with you to get a date out, if you can put that out in the paper, so we can get it. We'll definitely work with you on that. I appreciate it. All right, with that being said, I'll entertain a motion to close the regular Board of Aldermen meeting and go into executive session for real estate and personnel issue.
So before you guys vote, I just want to point out the personnel issue was added with less than 24 hours notice pursuant to 610. I just want to make sure that we announce the reason is the issue didn't come up till today. That's why it's less than 24 hours notice, but it is a necessity for us to meet and talk about it.
Duly noted that the personnel issue was brought up with, under the 24 hours, but is listed on here due to a quick, an issue that has come up within a reasonable time.
So moved.
Thank you.
Adjourn.
Thank you. 2 seconds.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Shell Harvey, seconded by Alderman Costello. Roll call vote.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy, Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. We are so adjourned.